So the New York Times reported yesterday, Monday, October 14th, that Kamala Harris was caught plagiarizing in her book on criminal justice. I guess she wrote this book about 15 years ago. But Stephen Weber, an internationally known plagiarism expert, proved in an article that she lifted an entire page from Wikipedia and didn't give it as a source, pretended like it was her own thought, as well as an entire article from John Jay Criminal Justice College. She lifted an entire article from there and made it seem like it was her own thoughts. Now, of course, the New York Times is downplaying this, saying, yes, she's guilty of plagiarism, but it's not that serious. CNN is saying conservative activists accusing Kamala Harris of plagiarism, but it's clear as day. Breitbart News actually has everything right there. If you want to go to Breitbart News today and look up Kamala Harris caught plagiarizing, they just give you what they show you. It's, you know, what this plagiarism expert found. But it's ironic because the New York Times is so downplaying it. The other news sites will probably just ignore it. They're so biased. It's ridiculous. But it's amazing that the New York Times is downplaying this. And this is like 2 months after her campaign plagiarized the Biden campaign. If you remember, they were getting criticized because they had nothing on their campaign website. The Harris Walls campaign website had no policy issues. So they literally copied and pasted the Biden Harris campaign and put it on the Harris Walls. So this is why when they asked her what she would do different than Biden, she said nothing, because 4 more years of Kamala Harris is just 4 more years of Biden, or probably worse. But it shows you, like I said, you know, like if you guys know that I've been following politics my whole life, it shows you the media's always been biased in my whole life. You know, they treated Ronald Reagan like they treat Donald Trump. But even back then, you know, 1987, you know, the New York Times, and I kind of recall this and looked it up, and I was right. The New York Times called out Joe Biden for his plagiarism. He got caught. You look up the speech, it's ridiculous. Like verbatim, word for word, he plagiarized this British politician. But even getting personal, like this British politician was talking about his family, his sisters, and Biden even copied that. Like, it was like, so, these guys are so fraudulent. They're so fake. But between that and then lying about law school, you know, he said that, you know, he told the lawyer he finished top of his class and he barely passed. He was like at the dead bottom of his class in law school. And then when this reporter, you know, back then there were some reporters that actually reported real news. He looked into why he was doing so bad, and he got an F on a paper because he plagiarized the whole paper. The teacher gave him an F. And then when he was running in 1987, not only did he get caught plagiarizing this British politician, but also RFK, you know. And it's funny because he wouldn't let RFK Jr. run against him. You know, they shut him out of the machine shut him out of the Democrat process. That's why he came over, and he's full-throated supporting Trump now. And it just shows you, like, how the machine is. Like, Joe Biden is, you know, up until Kamala, he was the most dishonest politician ever run for office. And the machine just protected him, you know. At the time, in 1987, when Biden got caught for plagiarism, his very close friend, and he called his mentor, the former KKK Grand Kleagle, Robert Byrd, he was the Democrat leader in the Senate. So Democrat Senator Robert KKK Byrd, you can look him up. He was the Senate majority because the Democrats had the majority in 87. And he's like, Joe Biden is a good man. He has good intentions. And I believe that he didn't lie on purpose. And then Joe Biden's, and ironically, I looked up what Joe Biden said. I thought this is what he said, but I wanted to confirm before I reported it. He goes, I'm just a middle-class guy that makes mistakes. Kind of like when Tim Walz got caught lying in the debate. He's like, yeah, sometimes I say things that aren't true. I'm just a knucklehead. And Kamala Harris, every answer to every policy question. Well, listen, I grew up in the middle class. My mother was middle class. My father was middle class. She can't say her grandfather because her grandfather was a wealthy slave owner in Jamaica. Yeah, her grandfather was a wealthy slave owner in Jamaica, and her mother came from India and was a well-off professor, and her father was well-off, and she was raised in Canada in a very affluent neighborhood. That's the truth about her middle-class background. But it just shows you how dishonest and fraudulent these people are. And, in 2008, when Biden ran for president, the same day Barack Obama announced, and they asked Biden about him. He said, wow, he's the first clean, this is what he said. He was the first clean and articulate African-American ever to run for politics. Very impressive. And, of course, he had to drop out. And you wonder, well, why would Biden pick this racist guy? I mean, his background is so racist. Well, because the machine was a little smarter. The machine that put Obama in place, the Democratic machine, was a little smarter then. They knew they had to win Pennsylvania, and Biden could give them Pennsylvania, and he did. The machine made a big misjudgment this time when they didn't pick Governor Shapiro, and I told you that early on, that I was worried that Kamala would pick Shapiro, and they didn't. And they made the judgment because they were afraid they would lose Michigan because of all the anti-Semitic Muslims in Michigan. And so they had to, a big part of the Democrat Party now are these anti-Semitics. They hate the Jews. So she couldn't pick a Jewish running mate. But she miscalculated because it looks like she's going to lose Pennsylvania and Michigan because these anti-Semitic Muslims aren't impressed with her at all. They're not impressed with her at all. And so it looks like they're not going to vote for her either. So she's going to end up losing Michigan and Pennsylvania, which she's done. I mean, she loses one of them, she's done. But so I'm calling it 325. You need 270 electoral votes. I'm saying Trump's going to win 325. Because the machine is using old tricks. When Obama ran, he first of all, he was a horrible president, but he was a brilliant politician, smooth talker, and he knew how to pit us against each other. So his strategy, like their articulated strategy, was to identify, it's called identity politics, to identify groups, blacks, Hispanics, lesbians, transgenders, every group, there's groups, and say, those mean white Republicans are against you. You got to vote for me. And it worked. But that's an old political trick. That, now with social media, people can see more. They can read about these people, how they lie. They catch them in lies. So they're still trying the same tricks, and it's not working. That's why Obama failed miserably. Trying to tell the people, you brothers got to vote black. You're black. Why aren't you voting for a black sister? It fails miserably, because they don't want to be identified. They want to be identified as Americans, hardworking men and women, And so the identity politics isn't working anymore. And the Democrat machine don't know what to do. They're trying all different methods now. I mean, they're so desperate that Kamala's actually going on Fox News tomorrow night and having to sit down with Brett Baer. It's like a Hail Mary pass, because Brett Baer is actually an honest reporter. He's going to ask honest questions. He asks Republicans hard questions and Democrats, and I'm sure he's going to ask her about this plagiarism, and she's going to downplay it. She's going to have she's probably going to say, well, I'm a middle class girl. I had some editors, they edited. It's not my fault. I didn't even, these were my thoughts, but they edited. And he's going to say, well, why didn't you put the sources? You put fake sources down, which this, he called, this plagiarism expert, which they call a plagiarism hunter, is how New York Times refers to him, I think it was. He said you put fake sources down that weren't even the source. So that'll be interesting tomorrow night. But I feel good about this election. The Democrat machine is, they're going to pull out all kinds of dirty tricks. It's October. Generally, you got to worry about the October surprise. We had an October surprise last time, but the lying liberal media suppressed it. They said the Hunter laptop was Russian disinformation, and half the people didn't even see what was on there. But now they admit it. The FBI admitted it. Yeah, it was Hunter's laptop. And yes, Hunter got tens of millions of dollars from Russia, from China, from Ukraine. Yes. And he gave 10% of it to his dad. Yes, this is all illegal, unethical, treasonous. But, of course, the media is not going to talk about it. They admit it. Yeah, it was true. But no, there's no story there. But the American people are seeing through it. I think most people see the Democrats for what they are. They're just a machine. They just want to control us. And they lie, and the media's in collusion with them. They lie for them, because this should be a huge story. But I bet half of you haven't even heard the story. If this was Trump, it would have been 24/7 news. So anyway, we got to vote. It's our duty as Christians to vote. And you can't vote for a party, a machine, because it's not Kamala. She's just doing what the machine. They picked Biden, because he's part of the machine for 50 years. He was going to follow everything they said. Even when they told him to drop out, he dropped out against his will. And now they have another puppet, Kamala. That's why they didn't have a primary, because they had to make sure they had someone they could control, So she's just part of the machine. She's going to do what they tell them. And part of what they want is transgender mutilations, surgeries for minors. They want unlimited abortion. Kamala has already stated she will sign a bill that will allow abortion through the 9th month and will not allow any restrictions, including parental notification, parental permission, partial birth abortion in the 9th month. None, zero. Even Roe v. Wade wasn't this bad. She's taking it to a whole, she's saying we just want to codify Roe v. Wade. They're full of crap. Roe v. Wade allowed restrictions in the 3rd trimester. She's not going to allow any restrictions in any trimester. These people are demonically driven, and they want to control our free speech. John Kerry, all part of the machine. Hillary Clinton, Walls, they all said we don't have a right to hate speech and we don't have a right to misinformation. But what they call misinformation is arguments they don't agree with, or arguments they can't win. That's what they call misinformation. And hate speech is saying homosexuality is a sin. Hate speech is saying abortion is a sin. So they want to shut us down. Trump got it to the states, and now it's up to us to educate people in our state, evangelize people, and get them to vote no on Amendment 4, vote no on Amendment 4 in Florida, and what other amendments in other states. You got to vote against this abortion agenda. This is why they want to shut down our free speech. So we can't debate people on Facebook. We can't debate people on Twitter. They want to shut us down, and if you don't think it's coming, the Biden Justice Department has been going after pro-lifers and putting them in jail, going into their house with SWAT teams and pointing long guns at their family. This is happening in America. They want to shut us down, I always said a liberal is just a communist with a smile. They have the same beliefs as communists, Gavin Newsom said his most admired leader in the world is Xi from China, the communist dictator Xi. He said he admires him most. This guy is like a superstar in the Democrat Party. He's the worst governor in the state, but they love him because of what he says and how he looks, not because of the results. His results are horrible. 20 years ago, I remember a family member telling me, 28 years ago, a family member went to San Francisco on business, and she told me San Francisco is the most beautiful city. You go to San Francisco now, it's the worst city in the world. It's horrible. It's horrible. And this is what these liberal policies do. And they want to bring San Francisco to every city and small town in America. We can't allow it to happen. You got to vote for Donald Trump, and you got to vote against Amendment 4. You got to vote no. So until next time, stay Catholic.